Hey there, StarCraft fans! It's Falcon Paladin coming at ya with yet another edition of StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. And today for your Friday, it's going to be an Into the Void between LoneRider and Firefly. Here on Thunderbird, the latter edition. Top left-hand corner is the red Terran player LoneRider. And in the bottom right, it is the blue Zerg player Firefly. Alright, so Into the Void is my every other week examination of what goes on in the Bronze and Silver Leagues of StarCraft 2. Let's see, Silver, Bronze, and Platinum? Let's see, Silver, Bronze, Platinum, Diamond. Am I forgetting a league? I don't know if I am. I have 3 brain cells, you guys. Forgive me if I forgot a league, but anyway, it's just lobby stuff here. And Firefly went hatch first here at about 15 supply, but you want to go 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool, which just means when you have those numbers of supply, just do what I say. All right, man, so LoneRider here is doing barracks first. He's walling off, getting his second gas here, which you don't need to do unless you're rushing Cyclones or maybe Marauders, and you need a lot of gas there. If you need a build order, go to LOTV.spawningtool.com. That's spawningtool.com with a T. And you can find some build orders out there of exactly what you want to do for 1-Rax expand for Terran especially. Now, he is going to the factory, which I'm a huge fan of here for LoneRider. If you're going to go for that double gas, get that factory out fast, because you want to spend that gas on something, and out of your barracks, it's not going to do super well for you if you're just making Marines out of that thing. He does have a tech lab as well. So this kind of does feel like a build out of LoneRider. Let's see what he's going to do with it. One base in it. One base pressure from Terran can be pretty scary against a Zerg player who went for a hatch first play. They need to scout it. They need to see what's going on. And they need to prepare for it adequately. They cannot drone up as much as they normally want to do in a ZVT if it's a one-basing Terran. You want to stop at saturation on your second base and then basically pump Lings and get maybe a couple spines up. If it's a one-basing Terran player, these are some things you can do. But going for a third base is inadvisable. Going for any more drones than off of the 2 bases is inadvisable. Just start making stuff. A Roach Horn would probably do pretty well for you here, too. Banelings very rarely do you wrong up from a one-basing Terran. Unless, you know, it's Banshees, but in that case, make sure you have a couple Queens. Get some Spores out around 3.5, 4 minutes, and you will be just fine. Look at LoneRider lifting and swapping add-ons like a pro here. I am on board with what this guy is trying to sell us here today. That starport is just about done. We've got a tank out. Maybe he's been Baneling busted before, and he's like, I'm going to go one base until I get a tank out. And then we'll see about expanding, because right now I'm really worried about it. That is a really fast... Wow, Liberators, huh? And Liberator, too. This feels really defensive out of LoneRider. You can do this on 2 bases, you know. You can do this walling off down below. You can do this putting a tank in this location, which will cover this area pretty effectively, and getting a bunker, even if you're worried about some pressure from the Zerg player. Now, Zerg player needs to work on transferring drones over to the natural base when the main is saturated and oversaturated, as you're looking here, 17 out of 16. You do want to start transferring workers over. You can even rally this hatchery, send the drones over to this mineral patch by clicking on the hatchery, right-clicking on this mineral patch, and then it will change the rally. So they automatically go down to the base that doesn't have many drones. You can saturate it fairly quickly. All right, so more Liberators. Man, Liberators, Vikings, a Widowmine is out at the top of the ramp. Again, this could be aggressive, but it's being used pretty defensively out of LoneRider right now. Overlord speed is done from Firefly. I support this. I support really fast Overlord speed. You get that at the hatchery. It's pretty cheap. Are these SCVs following this around? Why are these SCVs following this Overlord around? LoneRider, what are you doing, my guy? Was he waiting for something to drop out of that? I guess. But you don't really have to worry about that. There was a tank. There were Marines. The SCVs really needed to just mine the whole time. LoneRider's having a problem with oversaturation too, and it needs to expand now. Needed to expand probably 30 seconds ago, but getting it started now is better late than never. Firefly is not expanded. And again, I don't know if that is a result of the fact that he knows that LoneRider doesn't have an expansion and he's not going to do it until the Terran player does, or if he's just not comfortable taking a third base. Normally, If your opponent goes for a command center after the barracks, which is a 1-Rax expanded, very standard, you start your third base at around 2.5 minutes, maybe 2:45. depending on how this works. You want to go ahead and go that 16, 18, 17, and then when your spawning pool pops, go for speed, go for 2 queens, go for 4 to 6 zerglings, and then immediately expand upon your next 300 minerals. I'm telling you, this will do wonders for your ability as a Zerg player. And LoneRider, he needs to expand. He's got all these SCVs working, which is nice, but they're coming back from work and coming back to a place where they're not really needed, as they're oversaturated. Now, here comes some Liberators. I do love the fact that spores exist for LoneRider. He maybe overmade them a little bit, but you know what? It's going to work out for him in the end right now. He's got 4 queens. I'm not sure what these Vikings are for necessarily. I mean, I guess trying to kill Overlords, but Overlords are here, Overlord is here, Overlord is here, and here. Overlords are not in a place where you're expecting them to be, my guy. Now, do you have anything on the ground to deal with these Vikings that have landed for some reason? Oh, covering them with a Liberator. What is this? Vikings are pretty bad against buildings, but you know what? They're going to go to take down that Spore. Allows the Liberator to sneak on up in here. This is an interesting strategy. The problem is, Queens are pretty good in this situation. Transfuse grows down too. Into the Void Transfuse. How do you like them apples? Quite a bit, I would say. Alright, so Zerglings getting on in here, and Liberators will kill them, and not super quickly. And as a result, one of the Vikings goes down. The other one is super low on HP. Queen could probably take it down. Careful with the Circle of Doom. Queen goes down, but a Viking in exchange here, too. Queens need to sneak up into this corner right here. Right there. Another Queen goes down. That second hit did not seem fair. Didn't you think that Queen was outside of the Circle of Doom when she got hit and killed? Meanwhile, Firefly is not spending his money at all. LoneRider is not spending their money either. One thing you need to do is, even when you're under attack... Oh, God, these Queens. Even when you're under attack, make sure you are making more drones. Make sure you're making more units. Make sure you're expanding. Just that's macro. Make sure you're macroing even when you are under attack. And you'll be pretty darn well served. Alright, so LoneRider, 1 base in it. It's got these barracks up. I don't know why he's so afraid of expanding. Maybe he doesn't know. Right? Like, maybe he doesn't know that expanding is a thing you need to do in StarCraft, because you're going to run out of money eventually here inside your main base, and having 2 bases of income is much better for you in making army than having 1 base worth of income. This kind of feels early Wings of Liberty to me. We got a 2-basing Zerg and a 1-basing Terran, and nobody had really figured out how to safely early expand his Terran yet in StarCraft 2, and 1-base attacks were fairly common, but yeah, here in the lower levels, Wings of Liberty can still exist. Every once in a while, I do get somebody asking me, hey Falcon, can you cast a Wings of Liberty or Heart of the Swarm match? The answer is no. The current client will not load those older replays. It won't even load some of the older Legacy of the Void replays I have on my computer anymore. So unfortunately not. I'd love to still cast some Heart of the Swarm stuff, some Wings of Liberty stuff, some back in the day things, but not possible. But I appreciate the suggestion. Keep the suggestions coming in these comments. Alright, so it looks like we're posturing to expand, right? We're protecting this ramp for the sole purpose of making it so it's easier to expand. This is a lot of production for 1 base for LoneRider. He is running out of mineral patches. It's 21 out of 12 available harvesters at this main right now. Firefly, what are you doing? Extra Queens, replace the ones that died. I appreciate that. +1/+1. Oh, Hydralisk Den and Aspire from Firefly. Okay. I kind of like both of those in this situation. Honestly, Mass Muta would do pretty wonderfully here. Like, a lot of Mutalisks could probably take this down. The Marine count is not super heavy. The Liberators, if they are in anti-ground mode, pretty actually terrible against Mutas. Hydras can be pretty good here as well, depending on the tank count. There's only 1 tank right now, so additional tanks could be problematic, but I don't necessarily see any in the production tab at the moment. Finally expanding, by the way, is LoneRider at about the 9-minute mark. You really want to expand before the 9-minute mark, like closer to the, 2-minute mark, 1.5-minute mark. It's basically Supply Depot barracks into expansion. You can afford to do it on the low ground, assuming your opponent didn't go for a pool first play, which I know you can't really expect all the time, but that's why you can SCV scout and see if this hatchery is complete or not, and the timing on that can tell you, all right, it was a hatch first if the hatchery is done. If it's not done yet, it was a pool first, and you gotta watch out for those lings, and maybe in that case make a Reaper, keep the Reaper at home, protect your base. Well, that's what the pros do. If you just watch the pros and learn from them, you can get pretty good at StarCraft. So 3rd base on the way from Firefly. I like the timing here. It's a little bit after the natural base for LoneRider, but so far so good. He wasn't quite sure what the Terran player was up to. So I like the Lings and the Banelings and the Hydra. So Ling, Bane, Hydra, a very standard composition for Firefly right now. He's doing all right. I'd like to see him drone up. If you're going to be on 3 bases, you need to be on more than 31 workers. You want to be closer to 60 or so. He doesn't have his 4th gas taken. He is sitting on 3, though, which is nice. Additional gas would be pretty useful for him. And additional minerals, too, coming from, again, this 3rd base, which he needs to saturate immediately. Is that a lurker den? Yeah, lurker den. We don't see lurkers in low-level games all that much. We don't see lurkers in ZVT either all that much. It's much more common in ZVP, much more common in ZVZ. If you get to the stage of the game where lurkers are viable, which is not all the time, unfortunately. I like lurkers quite a bit. They are a staple of Brood War, and as such, they've just remain close to my heart in StarCraft 2. Nice job getting the drones, or the SCVs, off this main base onto the natural LoneRider. Way to go, my guy. Now, holy Overseers Batman. Why do you have so many Overseers? Is he going to contaminate stuff? Dude, if this is like a mass contamination out of Firefly, I'm going to be in love. You don't usually see contaminate, honestly, at any level of StarCraft. If anything, it's going to be in ZVZ where you see it the most. But contaminate just stops a building from producing or stops it from researching for a while. It's like 40-something seconds. So it can slow down upgrades and can slow down the production of units. What are these? Are they throwing down changelings? What are they going to do? Is this just a mass scout? I don't know why you needed all these Overseers. I guess maybe I was overestimating Firefly's confidence and abilities here, because he did not contaminate anything or threat on any changelings at all. I'm not sure he's aware those are abilities that are available to him based on that, right? You think he tossed down a single changeling or tossed down a contaminate. But, you know, I guess if you're just going to go for the 5 Overseer Scout, that's what you're going to do. Now, Firefly did make the mistake a lot of Zerg players do. They got the 3rd base and didn't saturate it immediately. Not saturated. No drones in production. Still sitting at 30 workers, which is bad. Zerg especially need to be making drones all the time because their buildings cost drones. All 4 of these Spore Crawlers were drones. This hatch was a drone. This extractor was a drone. So it's hurting your economy to build stuff, but you need to build stuff to get better economy. It's a kind of a big ring around the rosy situation there. Also, the injects from Firefly are pretty non-existent at this point. None of his buildings have been injected recently at all. None of them are going to spawn new larvae, which you really need to do. That really needs to be a focus of your play if you're a Zerg player. Make sure you're injecting. It's about once every minute, roughly. If you just set a timer on your phone to go off every minute, and then go around, select your queen, inject, go to your next hatchery, select, inject, next hatchery, select, inject. You're going to have a much better time. You're going to have the larvae you need to produce units. You have 3 larvae right now. 3. You can make 3 units in response to this army that's coming across the map, or they were coming across the map until they weren't. But yeah, there's going to be a moment where your opponent is actually pushing to kill you, and you need to make something now, and you can only make 3 roaches, or 3 hydras, or 3 sets of zerglings. You're going to have a bad time. Now, lurkers out. Depending on how LoneRider knows how to handle this, this could be a bit of a game changer from Firefly. I like that he took his 4th gas here at the natural base, but he hasn't put any workers on it yet. And his 3rd base, that's exactly a drone working because he's making hydralisks. Yeah, look, your army supply can wait. As a Zerg player, what you want to be doing is droning, expanding, making as few units as possible to stay alive from your opponent's attacks. And then when you're on 3 or 4 bases, and when you have 60 to 70 to 80 workers, then you really want to start making a huge army. That's how it works. If you need to make 10 roaches to deal with an attack from a Terran player, do that. If you need to make that a bunch of lings and banelings to deal with an attack, do that. But really, at least 3 bases saturated before you start making an army. And Firefly is trying to make an army, but doesn't have the mineral income to do it. LoneRider spending his money pretty well too. Gotta say, for people who are floating a lot in the early stages of the game, both players are spending a much better now. Got Thors in production, got Corruptors coming in from Firefly too. Might believe in the Brood Lord with an Infestation Pit on the way. LoneRider's 3rd base coming up on the other side. I like the number of production facilities that he has. If you're spending your money, right, if you look down, you have less than 1,000 resources, you're doing pretty well. You have the buildings to continue to produce stuff, and that's what you want as a Terran player. It's enough barracks, enough factories, as another factory finishes, to keep producing stuff to where your money is not just accumulating, doing nothing for you in your bank. LoneRider, as I say that, approaches 1,000, but then goes ahead and spends on a couple Thors, couple Vikings, starts an upgrade. Anything you can spend your money on, do it. Make sure your engineering bays are working too. There you go, +2 attack on the way. These Hellions are never getting through these rocks because they're so terrible against buildings, and these rocks have like 6 armor. especially. So it's going to take some time. Overseers, see what we're dealing with, and the answer is, well, a handful of Hellions, and literally that's it. I do love that Firefly has so many queens, though. I gotta say, I'm impressed with the number of queens that he has. This is like Snoot, Cyril, Raynor-esque queen production. But his worker count needs to improve past 38. Just make sure your bases are saturated. When you take a base, saturate it. Done. You've got enough resources to do so now. In fact, take a 4th base, and then just build another, what, 30 workers off of the... Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You can make 9 workers because you only have 9 larvae. That's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for you for a while here, Firefly. You got to get your injects on, man. Oh, there we go. Injected in the main base. That's good. And injected at the 3rd. Okay. So we're doing a little bit better with injects. So the larva count should be a little bit better at 17. That's what I'm talking about. See, 17 is a much better number if you need to make a bunch of stuff all of a sudden. Like a bunch of drones, for example, because your income and your economy is not as healthy as otherwise it should be. LoneRider having the same problem, not saturating his 3rd base. Oversaturating his main. He's got 2 expired refineries over here, and he's put those workers on minerals. Probably here at the 3rd, maybe fully saturating that refinery. I like that LoneRider is expanding again. That's really good for him. Lurker count. Lurker Queen is an interesting strategy, I gotta say, for Firefly. One thing you can do, by the way, is there's an Adaptive Talons upgrade. There you go, going for Hive. Adaptive Talons allows your lurkers to burrow more quickly and to move more quickly too, which is a really handy upgrade to have. Speed upgrades in general are pretty good in StarCraft. Now, LoneRider needs to move out. One lesson you need to learn here, LoneRider, is you never allow a Zerg player to sit down and do whatever they want for the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game. You will die. You will have a maxed out army at your front door murdering you over and over again if you do this in a game against somebody who is a little more competent at Zerg than Firefly is here today. So might as well get used to it, man. Might as well get used to pushing out. Even before you're maxed out, even before you're super comfortable with what you have, you really got to push out with smaller armies. You got to send the Liberators over. I loved the harass we saw at the natural base earlier, but you got to follow that up with drops. Follow it up with Hellion run-bys. Like, Hellions getting into this mineral line would be disgusting. There is no static defense at all here. No spines. There's a couple of queens, I suppose. Hey, look at the chain inject. There we go. Firefly knows what's up. There we go. So if you shift V for whatever your hotkey is for inject, click, and then V-click and V-click again, then you will inject a bunch of times there, and it will chain inject too. Is he making... Oh, I thought I was making Broodlords for a minute. He doesn't have the Greater Spire, though. Idle workers down here in the main base. That's what we see at the lower levels, is idle workers being a problem. And really starting to oversaturate the natural base, too. So I like that the 4th base is coming up. And there it is, but again, it's behind as LoneRider's 4th base is done. So LoneRider has been expanding a little bit more effectively. I like taking the southern path here. This is one place the creep spread is not very good. The center is fairly well creep spreaded. The top side is a little better creep spread. The southern section, though, not super great. So it's a very weird army composition here. Vikings, Medivacs, couple Thors, bunch of Marines, few Marauders, and a couple Hellbats. Upgrades are +3 armor for the infantry, +2 attack for the infantry, and +2 mech attack. So these queens are dead, is what we're looking at here. I don't think they're going to kill anything at this point. The Medivacs are happily healing all of this little overstimmed army. You need to scan and kill these tumors. LoneRider, you got to kill creep tumors, my guy. Oh, do you not have detection? Oh my gosh, he's attacking into the lurkers. There's a scan. Okay. That's a scan. The Zergling's overextending a little bit. Nicely done pulling back. Nicely done pulling back. I like that. Okay, does he not have a Raven? I thought he had a Raven in here. He does have a Raven in here. You have detection. What you want to deal with lurkers, though, are going to be tanks. Oh gosh, all the Overseers. The Overseer hit squad. Somehow... Oh, never mind. None of them made it away. The Thor attacks were too big. Zerglings, I like that they're coming up and dealing with some of the reinforcements coming across the map. That's really good stuff, actually. And this planetary fortress is going to handle all of this, no problem. Especially with the Widow Mines. And no. I mean, closer than I thought it was going to... Actually, holy crap, I think it... No, okay. No, but they did a lot more damage than I thought they were going to that thing. That thing is actively burning down. LoneRider needs to repair it, and he is. Brought some SCVs over specially for that repair duty. Good job, guys. Good job keeping that planetary fortress alive. Adrenal glands on the way. +3 attack for the melee and a +3 ground carapace for Firefly. Enjoying that. I do love the upgrades we're seeing. We're 20 minutes in, but to be fair, some lower level games that we see, even at 20 minutes, we don't have this level of upgrade at all for anything going on. So still 4 bases. As a rule, you pretty much want to expand every 2 to 3 minutes once you get past that third. Just really, if you can, if you're being allowed to just sit back and do whatever you want, expand, saturate the base. Once you get up to, you know, 90 drones, maybe stop. Okay, this is just into the meat grinder here. The Zerglings have good upgrades, but when you're outnumbered this much by this much bio, it's going to go really poorly for you. You want something else. You want Ultralisks. You want Banelings. Lings alone are not going to do it in just giant balls of Terran like this. You can have an army that's 4 times as big as it out of Zerglings and just packed together like this. The army is going to be really hard to kill. If you're Firefly, LoneRider, pretty happy about that though. No further upgrades for LoneRider. He's happy with his +2 infantry attack. Getting +3 would do pretty well for you, my guy. Just trying to help you out here. Creep spread is sort of largely forgotten. Oh, never mind. Just throw down some new creep tubers down here to the south. Loving that. Continuing these ones would be nice. Continuing these ones would be nice. I like how there's a missile turret perfectly spotting these tumors. Nothing over to here to kill it at all. Actually going for the afterburner upgrade for the Metavacs. Allowing them to... Oh, what is it? I keep changing the upgrade, but basically it's just an upgrade to the afterburner of the boost ability. Hey, it's adaptive talons from Firefly. 5th base on the way from Firefly 2. It is late, but as I always say, better late than never. You have any missile attack upgrades, my dude? +2, not too shabby. I'd like to see a +3 if you're going to rely on this many Hydralisks and this many Lurkers for sure. Army supply, 131 and 135. Pretty darn close on that front. 49 workers to 43 workers. Firefly has done a pretty good job saturating his 3rd base. 4th base is actually not bad either. And then once again, 5th base, we'll see how quickly that one saturates. LoneRider's not quite sure what he wants to do. I kind of feel like he could have won back there if he'd maybe pushed the Thors in first. Allowed them to hit the Lurkers from distance. I know the Lurkers do bonus damage to Armored, and that's what these Thors are, but the Marines were not doing very well in that situation at all. LoneRider's going for Hyperflight Rotors. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, Hyperflight. And a Fusion Core, maybe for Battlecruisers. Battlecruisers are 1 unit. Pretty easy to handle if you're Terran, and pretty hard to deal with if you're Zerg. Yeah, there we go. Lurkers here from Firefly. He's maxed out, by the way, on 49 workers. So his army is massive. Look at these Corruptors. Look at these Hydras. Army supply 151 at the moment. Both players actually fairly even there. A scan. Bringing the Raven over would be a good thing. There we go. So the Banshee's trying to kill these Lurkers, but look how fast they move. Look how fast they move with adaptive talons. Banshee totally dead. Yeah, once those Overseers showed up, she was out. LoneRider sitting again at 43 workers, not really interested in building any more SCVs. Still doing a pretty good job, actually, moving SCVs from places where they are idle, maybe except for these dudes here at the natural base, to a place where they could be useful. Maybe actually harvesting minerals from this 4th would be a good idea. ISEC auto tracking on the way from LoneRider. I like that LoneRider understands just keep doing stuff. Keep getting upgrades, attack upgrades, armor upgrades, wherever you can find them. Upgrades to, you know, Banshees. Upgrades to building armor. Upgrades to range for planetary fortresses and missile turrets. No worries. No worries at all. Oh, attack it on into the Lurkers! Here we go! I think he can take them. The Marines, again, being in the front here are bad, and now the Hydras will trade really well against these Thors. The Corruptors are going to handle the air at this stage. Yeah, the Hydras need to attack the Thors. They not need to worry about anything else here. There we go. Thor down, Banshee in here, hitting away because the Overseers are right next door, but they're not here yet. Army supply 60 to 29. This Banshee happily sitting at 5 kills. Dude, you have Overseers. Oh, these Banshees are in trouble too. And then just parking on top of that Banshee until detection is available. All right, more Thors in production. LoneRider's down to 85 supply. He lost more than 100 supply of army in that engagement. Firefly making 36 Hydras at a time. How are the injects, my guy? Not great, but they were good enough for a while to give you 36 larvae, which is awesome. Actually, once you get about 7 bases, you don't need to inject as much anymore. You will just get the larva production that you would normally anyway. So you're getting close to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases is pretty good. I mean, sure, they're not actually there yet, but getting there nevertheless. And actually making drones. Ooh, Firefly. Man after my own heart. Now, if you're LoneRider and your opponent is making a bunch of tanks like that, get tanks. A bunch of lurkers like that, rather. Get tanks. I don't know why LoneRider doesn't believe in tanks. It's honestly kind of confusing. Ow. Widowmine shot doing some damage. Widowmine shot doing some damage. Overseers come over, and haha! Burrowed unit versus burrowed unit. How do you like them apples? Hey, do you remember when spines were huge? You remember when they introduced lurkers in StarCraft 2? And the lurker spines were like as tall as a Hydralisk was? I need to find some footage to prove this, but I remember it. It's clear as day. Lurker spines used to be massively big. I like this. I like he's taking advantage of the quick burrow. There's your scan. The Hydras need the help here. LoneRider very intelligently pulling back. That is something that I struggle with at times, is recognizing when there's a situation you're not going to win and pulling back. LoneRider doing a good job with it here. Tank fire, and this is what I said about tanks, remember? See, the Thors, if they can sit back and just hit the lurkers without worrying about a million Hydralisks. All right, so a million Hydras here. I really think they could take that army. It's another thing. You need to learn when you can actually take an army. If you just keep dancing, though, this tank, or this siege tank, is going to wreck you. And there we go. Tank down, Thor down. Bit of an army up north here for LoneRider, trying to attack on into a planetary fortress, but Widow Mines and planetary fortress shots not too forgiving to Hydralisks. They are glass cannons, which just means that they're squishy, but they hit hard. I like that they have the +3 armor. The +2 missile attack is good, but I'd love to see +3. Again, if you're making more, 23 Hydras, in fact. 22 Hydras, rather. I cannot even read numbers. And a couple more lurkers in the mix. Now, pro tip for Firefly. If you're going to make more lurkers, use the super wounded Hydras. If you're going to do that. LoneRider keeps scanning the lurkers and getting in there and almost killing them, but then backing out and letting them wreck him. So Hydra's in. The lurkers are all dead, but the Hydra's not going to stand against this large of an army. You know, if we're talking 30 or 40 Hydralisks, yeah, they could probably take that. With a handful of 10 that were there, that was not going to happen. The Zerglings are in production. I don't like Zerglings against Blue Flame Hellbats. It is a bad experience for the Zerglings. I've dealt with it too many times before. What you're going to want are some Banelings to clear out the Hellbats. And then Zerglings should be able to handle the rest of this, especially with the upgrades that we're seeing here. They do have the +3 attack, yeah? For the melee, they do. So they're 3/3ers. And they have adrenal glands. So these are fully upgraded, scary Zerglings. Ooh, battle cruisers on the way from LoneRider. Okay, the problem is your opponent has shown the ability to make Corruptors and really shown the ability to make Hydras too. Hydra's not as good against battle cruisers as Corruptors are, but Firefly has shown, again, the ability and the penchant to make both. So if you show up with the battle cruiser, he's going to know what to do. He already has the tech structure for it. He already has Corruptors in the sky. He already has a ton of Hydras. He was working on +3 missile attack too. Greater Spire coming in. He's like, you know what? How am I going to break this Terran? It's going to be Broodlords. That's all we're looking at. It's going to be Broodlords. I like the creep spread has ideas of pushing out different areas. They haven't really been followed up on all that much. Here we go. New tumors. 11 tumors on the way. All right. Firefly keeps doing stuff to prove me wrong here. He is paying attention to his creep spread, which is nice. LoneRider's back up to 180 supply. His macro has actually been pretty good, I gotta say. Again, too slow and not aggressive enough. If you ever get promoted LoneRider, you're going to start running into Zergs who aren't this passive and know how to macro up faster than this, and you are going to die a lot. But I like you have battle cruisers. I like you have Marines and Marauders. I really enjoy the Hellbats in the mix here too. It's going to make Firefly need Banelings. Ooh, tactical jump down south. We got a Spore. We got 2 Queens. Good transfuse. And then the Corruptors come over. We're going to lose a Queen, and that's about it. Wow. Oh, he did jump out. So we didn't jump in. He wandered down with the walking down strategy and gets a kill before it has to come home and be repaired. Now, LoneRider, I'd like to expand maybe 2 times. At this stage of the game, you're really running out of income. This 3rd base is looking super unhealthy. The 4th base, not super happy either. You can tell the minerals are running out because they're getting shiny. Shiny minerals are bad for you. Zerglings, trying to check and see if there's a base over here. I assume that's where we're going. And yeah, we're coming right over here. And nope. Nothing doing. There is nothing there to worry about at all. Zerglings decide to commit suicide. Oh, yeah. I thought some of them would go home. But nope. The rest, all of them were suicidal. They had a suicide pact together. It was very sad, actually. They didn't have to die, and they left behind some very sad friends and family. Have to assume. Unless Firefly was just intentionally freeing up supply to make other stuff, that would be cool, but no. Nothing in production. +3 missile attack is finishing up, which is going to be useful. How's this tank count? Again, LoneRider needs more tanks. I like the Hellbats, I do, but with your opponent is going this many Hydralisks, then tanks are going to be amazing. The problem is, you're worried about Broodlords. In that case, tanks are not amazing. In that case, you want things, well, sort of like Hellbats. If you have enough Hellbats to roast up the Broodlings when they show up, they could be pretty good. Better against Locusts and Swarm Hosts, but pretty darn good against Broodlings too. With that, again, the Blue Flame upgrade, as well as the +3 vehicle attack, which is done. So LoneRider decides it's time to move on in, try to kill some of these tumors, of which there are 118. So Firefly creep spread on a fairly large map has been doing pretty well for himself, I gotta say. Now, the good thing about this creep spread is, 1, it gives you a speed boost, it gives you vision, and it's an early warning sign when you're about to be attacked. That is a reason to spend money and spend, well, not money, but spend time and attention on creep spread. No, seriously, you could kill those lurkers. The Broodlords are a bit of a problem. There you go. Tanks sieging up, firing at stuff from a distance. The Overseers come in and just get wrecked for the most part. The tanks are not in this battle. Guys, the tanks need to be in this battle. The Corruptors are fighting by themselves. The Broodlords are finally starting to engage. The Hydras attacking on in here too, actually. Corruptors need to take down the Broodlords, or the battle cruisers. Don't take down your own Broodlords, though. Don't do that. That is super bad. And it's a bit of a slow go here. Nobody necessarily wiping out the other player all that quickly. The battle cruisers are going down. The Broodlords are dropping Broodlings down on everything. But again, pretty good Blue Flame Hellbat. Making stuff happen here. But forced to retreat as the Broodling strikes are damaging for sure. Firefly decides, you know what I need here is 80 Zerglings. Holy crap, Firefly. That is a Cyril-esque move to just make 80 Zerglings out of nowhere. What a boss. What a boss you are. All right, so Zerglings, they are here. They are here, they are here, they are here. Additional Broodlords in production, a total of 9. I do like to have at least 9 to 12 Broodlords. Any more than that gets a little unwieldy, and suddenly you don't have all that much anti-air to protect them. But 9 to 12 is a good number to have. Army supply is currently 71-134, which is bad for the Terran player. I would like to point out that Firefly did end up getting Burrow, as well as Pathogen Glands, as well as Neural Parasite, and has not made a single infestor this game. Now, at this level of StarCraft, maybe don't focus so much on spellcaster play. It really helps you get better if you can get good with it. But I think the more important stuff here is dealing with macro and decision making and just always expanding and always making army, right? Oh, the Widow Mines don't care about your upgrades, Zerglings. Blue Flame Hellbats don't really care either, actually. Broodlord Flake Attack from the high ground. I love this positioning. From the high ground, nobody can get close to them on the ground unless they fly directly over. But LoneRider's in trouble right now. LoneRider, oh, hang on, he's got a couple Vikings. He's got a good number of Vikings. Where are the Corruptors? Oh, here they are. They're like, hey, wait for us. We're here to kill everything in the sky. Anti-armor missile would be great. Does get the anti-armor missile off. Okay. LoneRider fairly comfortable. with his spellcasters. The Raven manages to make that, but I think we're done. LoneRider's base is toast. He did expand down to the bottom left-hand side, which we saw earlier, but he's still a one-basin Terran with an army supply of 41. Making Vikings here, but there are just too many Corruptors. The upgrades for the Corruptors are +2 attack and +1 armor, which is pretty nice. The Vikings sitting at +2 attack and +2 armor, which is good. So Broodlord count, a couple of them have gone down. Corruptors taking out the Vikings quite effectively, which has always been the case in StarCraft. One of the ways to deal with Vikings is going to be Corruptors. The Broodlords do not know about this base. I don't think... Yeah, he doesn't know about this base on the left side, so he thinks he's won this game. He thinks he's taken out the income of his opponent, but he has not. Meanwhile, 3 tanks are just kind of rolling through here. They're all going to die right now, but 28-19 kills is pretty good. And there's your good game. LoneRider taps out, and Firefly is your winner in 35 minutes and 48 seconds. With the Broodlords and the Corruptors and enough Zerglings with full upgrades to get rid of those tanks, LoneRider decided, I'm not going to try to fight this out. My army supply is abysmal. The Zerg player has income and army to boot. To boot? What am I trying to say there? To spare, I believe is the word I was going for. I don't. Anyway, stuff happens. Stuff happens with the brains. So pretty fun little back and forth, I gotta say. That was interesting stuff. A lot to talk about, a lot to learn about there too. I mean, if you're the Terran player, I kind of liked what you were doing, but again, be more aggressive. Be more aggressive with what you have, and you're gonna have a better time against Zerg for sure. But yeah, if your opponent suddenly shows up with the Broodlords and these Corruptors, well, yeah, Mass Vikings going to be pretty good. Some Ghosts with steady targeting are also pretty fantastic. The pros struggle with this, so if you struggle with it too, don't worry all that much about it. But look at how few Corruptors there are. I kind of feel like if you had, 8 to 10 Vikings with the upgrades that you had, LoneRider, you could have won this fight. You could have wiped these dudes out and kept fighting for another day. So, good match. End of the day, 39,000 resources lost for each player. Difference separating them is 300 total resources, which is nuts. Absolutely insane. Only 8 drones died in this game. Only 17 SCVs died in this game. That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. It does speak to how few workers were actually created in this game, to be fair. But the fact that not many more of them died is pretty awesome. 25 lurkers went down, which is a ton of lurkers. 19 Corruptors. 1 hatchery, 1 planetary fortress, and 1 orbital command. 4 battle cruisers with really expensive LoneRider, and 10 Thors died. Which Hydras and Zerglings and Broodlords are pretty good against Thors. And that's a lot of what Firefly was doing. So, cool. All right. Well, that's going to be it from me today. So this has been Falcon Paladin coming at you with yet another edition of StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. And you're into the Void. Go ahead, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe if you like what you saw and what you heard today. You can also catch me on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and Twitch. All at /Falcon Paladin. And until next time, as always, thank you so much for watching. And you take care of yourself.
Broken and ashamed by what you have done. There is no redemption, and so you must run. And it's taken your heart and broken your soul. You cannot go back until you're made whole. And you're running into the void. You go searching into the void to find a place you can live, a place you can love. Is it just an illusion? push comes to shove, there's a light upon you, and you follow it on. Looking for a reason and a way to atone. All around you, the planets and stars. You're lost in a maelstrom of a great new unknown. And you're running into the void. You go searching into the void to find a place you can live, a place you can love. Is it just an illusion when push comes to shove? And you're running into the void. You go searching into the void. And you're running into